Hi algebra students. Today we're going to be solving inequalities, and today we're just going to be solving some simple inequalities. But before we do that, we need to take a look at the symbols and refresh our skills and memory on the symbols that we need to use. For instance, the less than symbol, an arrow pointing to the left. We have the greater than, an arrow pointing to the right. We have a less than or equal to, which contains, notice the equal sign at the bottom, and a greater than or equal to. Now the ones that are on the left hand side, the less than and the greater than symbols, when we go to graph, we make sure that those are open circles. Kind of how I have them open on the symbol. When we go to graph them, we make sure that we keep the point open. Now the ones on the right over here are closed circles. Notice how I have them shaded in. So when we go to graph, we have to remember to shade in the point. When comparing two numbers on a number line, the larger number is always on the left side. So the numbers to the left are smaller than the numbers on the right. When we solve when we solve inequalities, it's just like solving equations, except there's one exception. There's one rule that we have to pay attention to. And that rule that we have to pay attention to is this one right here. If you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must do what I call flip the switch. Okay? You must flip the inequality. Flip the inequality. Okay, this is a rule that whenever you multiply or you divide by a negative number, you have to flip the switch. Other than that, the steps you go through are the exact same steps you use in solving equations. Let's take a look at this example that we have on this page. With the 5.7 plus w is less than 24. Our goal is the same just like in equations, and that is to get that variable by itself. So in order to get this w here by itself, I'm going to subtract 5.7 from both sides of this inequality. And when I do that, these cancel out, bring my w down. I bring this same less than symbol down because I did not divide or multiply. I'm just subtracting, and subtracting, that rule that we just talked about, does not apply. Okay, and then when I do this the other side, 2.4 minus 5.7 is a negative 3.3. So this is my solution. W is less than or equal to, W is less than negative 3.3. All the values less than negative 3.3 are solutions for this inequality. When we go to graph it, I need to find negative 3.3, and that's kind of in this area right in here. I'm putting an open circle because my inequality did not have an equal to sign, so this has to be an open circle. And the way of which I shade, well, w is less than negative 3.3. You have to ask yourself, where are all the numbers less than negative 3.3? All the numbers that are less than are to the left. So then what we do is we shade this number line and make sure you shade in the arrow. This indicates all the numbers that are less than negative 3.3 are solutions to that inequality. Another way that you can check if you shaded the correct side of the number line is pick a point in the shaded region. For instance, if I pick negative 7. Okay, this is kind of like doing your check work. If I plug negative 7, if I do 5.7 plus that negative 7, is it less than 2.4? And when we go do the math, we have negative 1.3. Is that less than 2.4? Well, yes, it's negative, so if that's true, we know we shaded the correct side of the number line. Okay, let's take a look at this example number 2. I said solve and graph. Up at the top here, we want to remember this rule that if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must flip the switch. And remember what I mean by flip the switch is you need to flip the inequality symbol when you multiply or divide by that negative number. So for example, in number 2, if I go through and start solving this, I see here's my variable with my x. So I'm going to add 12 to both sides. And when I do that, I get 36 is greater than negative 7x. Now when I go to solve that and I divide by negative 7, I have, but wait a minute, I'm dividing by negative 7. This is the spot where light bulbs, bells, and whistles have to be going off because you divided by a negative 7. That means this inequality you need to flip. And then we have over here this negative 36/7, which would actually be like a negative 5 1/7. Okay, now when we write a solution, we don't really like to have the variable on the right-hand side. So what we would do is we would flip this around and write it so that the variable is on the left-hand side. You see how it's on the right-hand side right here? We want to flip it around. So to flip it around, I want the x here on the left-hand side. You see how now the inequality is open to the x? Keep it open to the x. And now I have the negative 5 1/7. Now to go and graph that, I need to go to 5 1/7. Now I look at my inequality, and this has to be an open circle because I don't have an equal to sign on my inequality, and all the ones greater than fall on this side of the number line. So I want to make sure that we shade that number line in along with the arrow, and it's saying all of these numbers here are solutions. Well, we can always check that by picking a point on the shaded region. And I'm going to pick 0. Looks like a really good number here. I'm going to pick 0, and I'm going to check 0. When I check 0, I'm going to plug it into the original equation. 24 is greater than negative 7 times 0 minus 12. Well, 24, is it greater than negative 12? Yep, that's true, so I know I've shaded the correct side of the number line. I just have a couple more examples, and here's the third example that we want to take a look at. We want to solve and graph this. So, hang on. Okay, there we go. Okay, we want to solve and graph this. So I have w divided by 3 minus 8 is greater than or equal to negative 10. So we solve this just like we would any equation. That is, we have to undo the subtraction first. That leaves us with w divided by 3 is greater than or equal to, and negative 10 plus 8 is negative 2. To solve this, to get w by itself, to undo that division, we have to multiply both sides by the 3. So I have w is greater than or equal to negative 6. Now in this example, I do not have to flip the inequality because I did not multiply by a negative number. The only thing left for me to do is to take this to the graph. So I go to negative 6, and I need a solid circle here because of the equal to sign in the inequality. The equal to sign includes the negative 6. And then I need to shade the side where all the numbers are greater than negative 6, and that would be to the right. Make sure you shade in your arrow, and we can tell that your number line is shaded. You did a nice and thick job. Now we can always check this by picking some point on the shaded region. I want to pick 0. 0 is always a good point to test. And if I plug it in for my check work, I get 0 divided by 3 minus 8 is greater than or equal to negative 10. Well, 0 divided by 3 is 0. 0 minus 8 is a negative 8. Is negative 8 greater than negative 10? Yep, that's true, so I know I have the correct side of the line shaded. What I'd like you to do on this next problem, this very last problem that we have in our notes, number 4, 8 minus 5x is less than or equal to negative 28, is I'd like you to write it down on your paper, I'd like you to try it on your own, and I'd like you to turn the video back on and see if you have the right solution. I'm going to go ahead and start working on it, and so when you turn it back on, you can go through and listen to it to see if you did the correct steps. I would subtract 8 first. I would have negative 5x is less than or equal to negative 36. Then I would divide both sides by negative 5. And then I would have x is greater than or equal to, because I have to flip the switch because I divided by a negative. And negative 36 divided by 5 would be 7 1/5. So when I go to graph it, I go to 7 1/5, and I have to make sure that I put a solid circle in there. And then I want to shade to the right and make sure that I put an arrow in there. Now checking this, maybe you could plug in the number 8 or the number 9 or number 10 and check it to see if it's the correct side that's shaded.